Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellow Cat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's get started. Why did you suddenly quit from a job? Part 8. I worked as a supervisor at a fast food restaurant with my friend. He was the front supervisor and I oversaw the kitchen. We would have to wait for him every single night to finish his S because he would let his stupid friends in after closing and chat away while mopping the floor. He would enter the back kitchen and begin ordering my staff around after they had all been given a list of tasks because he felt as though he had been given a power trip by some shiny name tags. These people were kids, maybe 15 or 16 years old, and they had no idea who to listen to. I repeatedly brought up this matter with him and my manager. He would be all right for a while after the manager spoke with him. After our manager resigned, chaos ensued. If you've ever worked in a fast food restaurant that genuinely cares about cleanliness, you're aware that there are charts for staff opening and closing tasks each day, as well as weekly tasks that need to be completed. Everybody who finishes a task has to sign the sheet. I divide up the chores between myself and the employees each shift so that nobody gets to pick easy ones and they know I'll do my share. When a friend comes in and assigns them tasks that make no sense, like cleaning hood vents in the middle of a shift, young teens are motivated to work hard and gain confidence in me as a supervisor. I have a closing shift with him after we've been fighting for weeks over this BS. It's an hour until closing, so I've asked a staff member to finish some dishes and replenish supplies. He's told to mop the kitchen floor by the end of the evening by a friend so that we can get out of here at a decent time. You guys never seem to be able to get along. When I emerge from the freezer, why is the child mopping the floor? We still have an hour to spare and need to empty the kitchen fryers, which is a messy task. Said to by another shiny badge. When I get up front, instead of doing his closing duties, this POS is sitting with his buddies and eating apple pies. I'm done. I've been here for 4 years, and this guy has been a pain in the A for the past 1. I head to the back office and write a letter to the acting manager explaining why I did what I did and apologizing for any confusion that may have ensued. I'm sick of this guy's arrogance. I return to the kitchen, give the child I'm assisting instructions to finish mopping the floor, and then I leave for home. I then went to the burger station and started spreading mayo over every component of a burger. Throw the bun, patty, lettuce, pickles, cheese, and bacon onto the roof, essentially securing them there. After that, I just sat and talked, refusing to do any work. A piece of cheese slipped out of my hand and splashed into the mop bucket as my friend entered the back and began yelling at me. With a slow gaze, he exclaims, "What the F? Who performed this? Who?" in a high-pitched, squeaky voice. I gave him a direct look and told him that if he had been supervising rather than hanging out with his friends, he would be aware that I had quit and that I couldn't care less how he intended to clean that S up before the end of the evening. I left and didn't turn around. After me, almost all of my young coworkers left. The owner's son was the chef at the Italian restaurant where I worked, and when he made a mistake, he would always take it out on everyone else. The P had a brat's temper. It was a particularly bad night for that shift, but one night they had wildly overbooked. This was normal because they wanted as much money as possible and had parties with reservations waiting for more than an hour. The open kitchen caused a lot of noise and stress, and the chef was always screaming and swearing at the workers, even in front of the customers. He began to pick on me while I was doing the dishes. We've argued a few times over the years, but this was a particularly bad night for that ass, like I mentioned. It all got to me then, the unachievable pace, the verbal abuse. I warned him not to scream at me at first. I threatened to call the labor board when he yelled at me once more. He confronted me, yelling obscenities and threatened any workers who might have stopped to watch the altercation. I simply turned to leave. He follows me out of the restaurant while he calls for a ride. I thought he was going to try something, but instead he acts like this pathetic, half-apologetic, sniveling person trying to make me stay. It was pitiful. How twisted must one be to attempt to appear innocent one moment and choke out a barrage of obscenities and insults the next? As I waited for my ride, I pretended to be leaving with the chef so we could carry on working rather than just standing there and trying to ignore him. "We're gonna squash the whole thing, okay?" was what he kept trying to tell me. I told him no several times and kept working. 5 minutes or so later, he yelled at another employee, and that's when I was waiting for. I then turned to leave. We headed out, my ride waiting for me outside. I knew that labor board threat would get to him because in the 2 years I put up with working at that asshole, I saw and heard a lot of dirty things. After I left, they tried to call me several times a day for a few days, but I didn't answer. I've had a lot of horrible jobs over the years, but this one was the worst. I was happier than I had been in what felt like a long, long time, despite the fact that I was unemployed for a few weeks. Serving customers at a pizza restaurant as a cook. The business suffers as a result of the boss's decision to stop ads. I was the one that was causing the problems, not the fact that there was not enough advertising. There, I worked for close to 4 years. After I had a good idea, he would poo-poo it, making it sound stupid. After 3 to 6 months, he would finally come up with an idea that was his. When he did this, he would blame me for something that had occurred on my day off a year earlier. He would bring it up. Not only was I unable to recall what happened a year ago, but I wasn't even certain that I had worked on that particular day. The final straw was when he relocated to a different location, failed to advertise the move, which prevented our regular customers from finding us, and then blamed me for the fact that it took 3 weeks longer than planned to reopen. Due to the fact that he was still not advertising, our regular customers believed that we were closed, which resulted in a complete lack of business on that side of town. He stated that I was to blame for the lack of business that we had. After a day in which I did not make a single sale, and during which I cleaned everything in the store, including the drain pipes that were located under the sink, he began to suspect that it was my fault that his company was experiencing financial difficulties. I then walked out of the room after telling him where to shove his business. It wasn't until a few years later that I learned that he had shut down both places of business and began painting houses for a living. I'd already completed my degree and was working at a very good job by that time. What horrible tale do you have about your neighbors or homeowners association? Part 8. As a resident of Germany, I'm the owner of a home in a small, peaceful community consisting of approximately 25 houses. The majority of the residents are families or older people whose children have moved out. I was born and raised in this neighborhood, and I'm now the owner of the house that my parents live in. The community has undergone significant transformations over the course of the years, and particularly in the past 3 to 4 years, we've witnessed an increase in the number of conflicts. In most cases, it comes down to families with children versus family with elderly members or families without children. Things like children playing on the street, which is perfectly legal because it's a Spielstrasse, and children making a mess outside. The design of the house and garden are another important aspect to consider. A number of households have large barbecue areas in their backyard, swimming pools, swing sets, and other similar amenities. The home of a family was recently painted in a pastel color by the family. Due to the fact that some individuals believe that it devalues the neighborhood, this is frequently a source of contention. Specifically, he's referring to the fact that one of my more immediate neighbors has recently begun advocating for a legal structure that's similar to that of American homeowner associations. When it comes down to it, he wants all of the neighbors to sign a legal contract that would compel them to adhere to a set of rules that have been established by a committee that's been elected. In the course of a dinner, he shared this information with a select group of neighbors, one of whom was myself. Because of the way he described it, it came across as an excellent concept that would be to everyone's advantage, with the exception of the fact that I've known him for many years and that my family, when I was a child, had quite a few disagreements with him. So, while we were eating dinner, I pretty much immediately shot down the idea, saying that I would never sign up for something like this and that I would actively advise others against doing so. He demanded to know why I would want our neighborhood to turn into trash pile as the situation became increasingly heated. Therefore, I brought up all of the instances in which he expressed his disdain for children playing, for any decoration, design, or garden that he considered to be an abomination, and for the fact that he was expelled from a Schreibergarten committee due to his excessive concern with following rules. Although I'm aware that it was pretty much a personal attack, I want to be honest and say that I believe he's a terrible person. Without a doubt, my wife and I were not allowed to continue with the dinner. In the future, she informed me that although she agreed with me, she felt that I should have been more courteous and that his plan was unlikely to be successful anyway. Another neighbor who I consider to be a good friend also mentioned that the whole thing probably won't even work legally. I have no idea, and I don't really care whether it's legal, whether it's feasible, or whether it's likely to fail. I don't know any of these things. I believe that there are times when people like that need to be called out, and this discriminatory attitude is just absolutely terrible. A few weeks ago, my HOA made the decision to forbid weekend home renovations. They never provided a valid explanation, just the assertion that people prefer to spend their weekends peacefully and without disturbance. I find it kinda ridiculous. Well, my shed was crushed, and my gutters were destroyed last Thursday when a tree fell on top of it. Weekends are busy for me, and fixing it would take some time with the wife. We waited until Saturday morning because she can't do it by herself. We completed it on Saturday morning since I wasn't back in town until early and we were both too preoccupied with work. These seem like emergency repairs rather than even renovations. After about 6 hours, we fixed the shed, the gutters, replaced some shingles, and had the trees removed and had the wood removed. The HOA, however, is not content. I received a letter informing me that I had violated the CCR and needed to pay a fine. That is definitely against the law, and they're unable to do that. I disregarded it. After that, they paid me a visit and informed me that I would have to pay a few $100s in fines because this was against the CCR, among other things. I informed them what I did was not wrong, I had a serious problem, I had to fix it, and was only available on the weekend. Now, leave me alone and do not ever talk to me ever again about this, and then I locked the door. He returns with additional HOA members, and they essentially say the same crap again. I became increasingly agitated, so I slammed the door and said, "As I told you before, I did nothing wrong, so kindly F off, a-hole." More and more letters arriving, informing me that my aggressive behavior will not be tolerated or condoned. Ridiculous as age. Edit. I should have mentioned that this is not the first instance of it. A while back it occurred in Texas, no weekend home improvements. The Houston Chronicle published the account of a reader who lives in a homeowners association that forbids homeowners from doing renovation work on Saturdays or Sundays. Isn't that the purpose of the weekends? You need to arrange a day off from work to complete any gutter or front door installation if you reside in one of these associations. To provide some context, I purchased a condominium that featured a balcony in the previous year and installed shoji screens, which are similar to fancy room dividers, as well as a shade structure. I received a letter from the HOA stating that they were going to fine me after 7 months had passed. This has a significant impact on my privacy, and it goes well beyond what the bylaws regulate. As a result, I was very angry about it. Nevertheless, before I went out and purchased a large number of fake plants to replace the items that I was being asked to remove, I decided to try my hand at a last-ditch lawyer letter. I'm a lawyer, and it's been successful up to this point. In essence, I wrote a letter to the management company in which I asserted that the fine is unlawful because it's in violation of the bylaws and that the notice does not make reference to the specific section of the bylaws that was violated. I stated that I will not pay the fine, that I'm interested in learning the appeals procedure, and that I intend to take this dispute to a legal level if it becomes necessary. In addition, I insinuated that the management company and/or the HOA might be held liable in the event that I was provided with outdated guidelines during the attorney review process. I also requested that the registered agent be contacted in order to serve process on both the management company and the board. It's been a couple of months since I sent the letter, and I've not received any information in response to it. I followed up with them a few weeks ago, and they informed me that they were still investigating the situation on their end during that time. It was my intention to be a D-head during the summer months by simply not complying with the regulations and paying the fines, but it appears that I've prevailed, at least for the duration of the summer. I am overjoyed to learn that I've been given a week off from work, and I am currently enjoying a massive cigar on the balcony of my very own private apartment. I was hoping that you're going to find the drama to be entertaining. If you want to watch the part 7, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again, and many thanks for your support.